What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another edition of Too Busy, Too Busy, Too Busy Tuesday. Hey, too busy, too busy, too busy Tuesday. Hey,
Hey.
we back in it. I'm so excited to be here. Had the whole month of September off, and I hope that y'all have enjoyed the time catching up on previous episodes. Listen, if you are behind, you can listen on Apple, on Spotify, on Google. You can also go back and watch all these episodes on Facebook if you're joining us from there, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can go back and see all the previous episodes. I am so excited to be back and to be back with a special guest. Now, y'all, this is a treat. This is one of my dearest friends, aka my bestie in my phone. That's what she's called. Um, Her name is Kristen. She goes by KB Newton. I probably will call her Kristen all night, but you should call her KB because I think that's what most people call you.
That is. It is what most people and you insist on calling me Kristen. So people be so confused.
She is the founder of Heart Convos, and I'm so excited that she agreed to join me tonight for Too Busy. Y'all are really in for a treat in this discussion. So, introduce yourself to the people. Tell them a little bit about who you are before we jump into this discussion.
Yeah. So again, my name is KB, and I live to champion deep, meaningful connection in relationships, specifically friendships amongst women. And so I love to disrupt the status quo and challenge people to connect and communicate at the highest level so they can have the deep, meaningful relationships that they want. And so that's my jam. That's what I do. Anytime anybody wants to talk friendship, relationships, I am your girl. So that's me.
Yes. She is. I mean, all the time, even in our friendship. So she ain't just talking about this stuff. We living this thing out in real time, y'all. Real time. So when I was talking to Kristen, I'm just gonna say Kristen. I'm gonna struggle every time if I try to say KB. I'm gonna be like, so when I was talking to Kristen about the what she wanted to discuss, we talked about a whole lot of things, y'all. But the one that really stuck out was these overgeneralizing that happens in relationships. So she told me, Raffinée, when it comes to overgeneralizing in relationships, for that I am too busy. And so tell me a little bit about some of the overgeneralizations that you hear, maybe common things that people say or that you've heard in your work.
You know, people have an all or nothing perspective when it comes to things either being good or bad or best, right? What you should be able to tolerate, what you shouldn't tolerate, what's a green light to let the relationship go, what's not acceptable for letting the relationship go. I feel like everything is in this extreme context, which is so ironic that I am saying this because I am the queen of extreme. I'm extreme. I learned not to have extremes because of you. So you the reason why
Okay.
I'm too busy for overgeneralizing things in relationships.
That's great.
Literally, Raffinée is the first person who taught me, like, probably shouldn't say or all or like always or never in scenarios. And I'm like, you're right, because it's probably not always and it's probably not never, right?
Mhm.
And so yeah, when it comes to relationships, I think people are constantly living in these extremes of, well, if you ever do this, the relationship is over, right? She didn't text me back. She not a good friend.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. Like they didn't want to hear what I had to say, or they shut down in the conversation. I don't have time for that. The relationship's over. You're not leveling up the same way I'm leveling up. I can't continue to do, life with you.
Yeah.
People immediately go to toxic. It's so funny because people don't even understand like the natural tension that exists in friendship or in relationships in general. And
Yeah.
so anytime there's any sign of anything, like you've crossed the boundary, you didn't meet an expectation, you talked to me crazy, like any of that happens, you toxic, I need to cancel you, I need to cut you off. And I'm like, why the extremes? Like, why
Mhm.
can't there be any nuance, any gradient? Because people are extremely nuanced. Why don't we embrace that when it
Yeah.
comes to relationships?
Listen, based on those things that you named, we would not be friends anymore if
Correct.
if that was the standard. It would be like I was like, "Oh yeah, we would be done."
All of it, all of it. And we are over a decade strong because we were willing first to stick with it, right? Which both of us have history
Sometimes.
of not sticking with it, right? You wouldn't.
No, not just me. Don't try to throw me under the bus. There
No,
were times
you
when you weren't trying to stick with it also. I can recall us having a few conversations when you were like, "We should just be done with this."
that might be true. That
Don't
might be.
try to play me, y'all. She trying to come for me on my
That
show.
my bad. Yeah, literally, we would not be where we are today if we had not been willing to at least try to push through the tension, the disruption, the conflict, right? Which again, there's a difference in all of those things, right? There's a difference between conflict and tension, conflict and a disturbance or disruption, right? And I think everybody just thinks any icky feelings, anything that rubs is toxic. And that's very frustrating because that's a very big generalization when, sometimes there's just y'all are just missing one another. There's a lack of understanding. Sometimes we have opposing perspectives and we're going to have to agree to disagree, right? And we're in conflict with one another, but it doesn't mean that we're not good for one another to the point that we are literally killing one another. You know what I'm saying? Like from the
Mhm.
inside out. Like
Yeah.
that to me is what toxicity is in a relationship, where this is literally like eating us alive, eating our relationship dynamic alive. Our soul cannot manage in this space. And that is not the same as I'm tired of you not texting me back when I text you.
Right.
Not the same.
Yeah.
Not the same.
So,
Anyway,
since we're already there, let's talk a little bit about kind of this cancel avoidance culture that we live in, because
okay.
that's a big thing now. And you're talking about this tension is not the same as like conflict, as the same as when we're just uncomfortable.
Mhm.
So, tell me and the people, I mean, really the people, because we've talked about this, like, what are your thoughts about this cancel culture? This, I'm attempting to always avoid conflict, tension in relationships. Like, because I think this is real. People are living this thing out every day, and all the TikTok experts tell you, "Hey, just be done." Everybody is an expert on TikTok. Now, I'm not on TikTok, but my clients are always telling me about TikTok therapists, and I'm like, "Get off of TikTok."
Let, please, please. Please, can we get off of TikTok? You mess around listening to TikTok and you're gonna ruin your life. Okay. And I'm not even sure that TikTok gonna be around in 10, 15 more years. You know what I'm saying? And you in 15 more years gonna be miserable, mad at TikTok. All right. I feel like cancel culture, there's nothing new under the sun. Cancel culture has been around since the beginning of times. As a believer, like I see it even, in the scriptures, in these stories of people who were cast out of the city. Like there were people who had conditions, there were people who had certain histories in their family that were pushed out from like the everyday norm. We don't just see that just there. We see that in American history. We see that in just all over the world, people who are marginalized, who are
Mhm.
pushed to the fringes. And that happens a lot of times in our culture. Once we find out that something is inconsistent, we find out that a person has had a fault or a flaw or whatever. It's kind of like we have no more like space for you. There's no more grace for you. There's no more, what I'm saying, like patience for you. You need to go.
Yeah.
And I am not here for that, because if the standard that we hold other people to is the same, which we, according to research, don't hold ourselves to the same standard as we hold other people to
Yeah.
ever, right? That's not even a thing. But if the standard was the same, all of us in something would be canceled. People just ain't found us out yet. We're not living our life on a camera in front of a whole lot of people, right?
Yeah.
And so it's so much easier to do to someone else. But I really ascribe to this whole treat other people like you want to be treated, and you do not want to be canceled. You do not want someone to find out about some flaw or inconsistency or that you have about yourself, and then say there's no more grace for you. Get
Mhm.
out
Mhm.
and have everything stripped from your life because of it. You
Yeah.
get what I
That's
mean?
good.
Like that you don't want that. You want grace, you want understanding, you want forgiveness, or you want space to make it right. You get what I mean? You want space to apologize, you want space to repent, to turn around.
Yeah.
We don't treat people the way we want to be treated. So my issue with cancel culture is that it's a mess, and nobody is really about that life for real. So in the frustration for me with cancel culture is like you don't keep that same energy in every area. You get to pick and choose who you want to cancel, who you want to keep, what's okay, what's not okay, and then who gets to decide that. And if it's up to the people, well, the people are here today, gone tomorrow. The people are like, oh yeah, today we rock with this, tomorrow we don't. So I'm like, man, forget all of y'all.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's a joke. Cancel culture to me is a joke. And anybody who ascribes to it, to me, has a lot of room to grow.
That's a very kind way to put it.
Thank you. You know I tried. You know I tried this time.
I
That was
saw
that was
you. Your brain
you
was
saw
thinking.
you saw I slowed down and everything because I was like,
That was good.
anybody.
Right. I appreciate it. We want
You
the
are
people to stay.
you are
Now, okay, so tell me, what makes it okay to have conflict then in relationships? Like, you got this platform called Heart Convos. Maybe we should tell the people what Heart Convos is or stands for or what that means, and then
absolutely.
I think that would be a good segue.
Yes, absolutely. So the way in which I champion deep, meaningful connection is through my platform called Heart Combos. It's something that has been a consistent thread in my life. I just didn't know what it was until I coined it 5 years ago. And essentially, a heart conversation or a heart combo is not a conversation just from your heart. They are the 5 conversations I think everybody should be having. And they're probably the 5 conversations that we avoid the most. And those conversations are honest conversations, elephant sized, authentic conversations, real conversations, and transparent conversations. And so, what are those 5 things? Well, the honest is pretty simple, but it's also the hardest one to do, right? An honest conversation is a conversation where there's no deceit. Truth exists. We are telling the truth. We are being honest. I feel like every time someone asks us how we're doing, we probably lie because we don't
Do
really take
you
it
hear
seriously.
me? I'm good. How are you?
Listen, like, how you doing? I'm fine. Just got the worst news of your life, but you fine.
Yeah.
I'm good, thank you. What? It uh, so honest, elephant-sized conversations, which is so cool because I have the shirt on today. Boom,
Right.
boom. Shout out to the merch. Um, Elephant-sized conversations are twofold. You're either addressing an elephant in the room, or you are addressing an issue that feels larger than life, heavy. It's stinking up your life, right?
Mm.
It's hard to move, and so it could be trauma or hurt or betrayal or even some things that are exciting but big in our life.
Mm.
Authentic conversations are conversations where you feel the freedom to show up as your most authentic self. No pretense. You're not pretending to be someone you're not. You're not pretending to care more than you do. You are showing up authentically. Real conversations are about addressing the real issue in real time. The illustration I often use is like in marriage, how if my husband and I, who, will get into some type of conversation or argument or whatever, and we start talking about one thing, but 30 minutes in, we're talking about 16 other things and don't even remember
Mm.
what the first thing is. Like we have drifted from the real issue in real time, like the issue that brought us to this point, right? And so that's a real conversation. And then the last one is transparent conversations. And those are all about allowing people to see through you, like see through to the things that they can't see looking at you. So your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, your ideas, your perspective, your beliefs, right? Your values. So those are what heart conversations are, heart combos.
I love it.
Now,
So,
can
okay, yes.
I'm going to answer the question around the conflict thing.
Okay.
Conflict should absolutely exist in relationships because no one single person is a carbon copy of the other. We all have our
Mm.
own set of thoughts, emotions, feelings, ideas, beliefs, perspectives. You mean to tell me that you're never, like, those things are never going to clash with another person, right?
Mm.
Like,
Mhm.
they will. Conflict is not bad. Tension is not bad. Disruptions are not bad. You get what I mean? Distractions are not bad.
Yeah.
How you handle them determines the effect of those things on your life and on your relationship dynamics, right? On you and on the people that you're in relationship with. And so I think that we should not spend, I don't know at what point when we've decided to make it a goal to avoid all things conflict or tension or difficulty in the name of protecting our peace. Again, another one of these overgeneralizations, right? Like I can't
Mhm.
have peace if I have conflict in my life. I can't have peace if I have tension in my life. It's like
Yeah.
I would think that your peace like is fortified, is even more valuable, like amidst conflict, amidst tension, right?
Mm.
Versus with the absence of it, you know? And so having said all that, conflict strengthens everything that grows, like experiences conflict at some point in the growth process. Humans, plants, everything. Like resistance is natural when it comes to growth. Growing pains are natural. Anytime anything is growing, it's being stretched, it's being broken in order to bulk up at the gym to get bigger, right? You have to literally tear your muscles for them to grow back stronger. If you
Mm.
want to lose weight, you literally have to burn fact. There's a purification process that happens in fire, right? And so
Yeah.
all of these narratives of like, this year I'm all about, know this, know that, know this, know that. And I'm like, I can tell you something about the person that wants to completely avoid conflict or has never experienced conflict in their life. Like, there's a lot to be said there.
Mm-hmm.
And we won't say it. But all I'm saying is it's absolutely necessary to create anything worth having.
Yeah. That's good. You know what I thought about while you were giving those examples of growth? I thought about things like teething, right? Like when we're all little, at some point we start teething. They've got to bust through the gums, and your kids are like miserable, and you're putting all kind of gel and things and freezing stuff. And that's a small example, but I think that happens all throughout life, like where you're experiencing that, like that tension, that rub, that like trying to continue to grow and go
Absolutely.
on. I love that.
And
I
here
think
we
that
are in
was great.
2022 and ain't nobody got no teeth. Because we all out here toothless. Because don't nobody want to, they don't want the pain. They don't want the discomfort. So they're like, I'd
Yeah,
rather have no teeth or
very
just
true.
go get me some fake ones.
Mm-hmm.
Act like I got teeth.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to ride this train. Go ahead.
We got a question, but I want to say this and then we're going to go to the question. One of the things that I find myself talking a lot about with my clients about is that idea of like, I got to protect my peace.
Mm,
And sometimes those phrases, I usually ask, like, what does that mean? Because you hear that stuff in the culture, but then what that actually means for me as an individual might be very different than what they're talking about in the
absolutely.
culture.
Absolutely.
And I find myself challenging people sometimes on protecting their peace because it's like, well, I'm not going to have the conversation because I want there to be peace. And I'm like, but there's not actually peace because you're still disturbed.
Correct.
And so
Correct.
there's this like false sense of
Mm-hmm.
peace that we think we have. It reminds me, and go with me because you talk about me, but it reminds me of this show that I like to watch. So I like to watch My 600-Pound Life because I just think it's fascinating, like to hear these people's stories and just the therapeutic implications of it for me in my profession as I watch this show. And one of the things that I hear consistently as I'm watching this show is people will say the enabler or the people in their lives that bring them the food. They say, I continue to bring them the food and I continue to give them the stuff that I know is killing them because I don't want there to be an argument or because I don't want to hear their mouth or because I don't want to fight. And my question usually in those moments is like, so you would rather them be dead than tell them no to a sandwich? And of course, no one's thinking that extreme, but sometimes I'm like, we need to blow it up bigger than what, like, this immediate gratification that happens sometimes. Like, oh, if I don't talk about this thing, then we don't have an argument today. But then you're carrying that thing. And then in the next conversation, to the point you brought up of your husband sometimes, then in the next conversation, I'm holding on to the last 15 things that I didn't talk about, in addition to what you did today that got on my nerves.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
so it's not about the real thing right here. It's all these things that have gone unaddressed for the sake of me holding on to
Yes.
peace.
Yeah, and here's the thing. You said, we need to blow the story up to the extreme. And I'm like, or we just need to help people see past the moment. I don't think in
Mm-hmm.
2022 we're in the habit of looking past what's just happening right now. We
Yeah.
get so fixated on like, well, this is hard and this person did this to me and I didn't get this opportunity and like we're just so fixed we can't see the forest from the trees. You get what I mean? Like we're just
Mm-hmm.
this is it. This is all it is. And so you learn to zoom out or you learn to future pace or to debrief and process what's happening. You get what I mean? Where you can see things on a larger scale. So like to
Yeah.
your point, you're absolutely right. Ain't nobody thinking I'm giving you this because I want you to die. You get what I mean? But if
Mm-hmm.
you were in the habit of seeing past just the moment,
Yeah.
right? Seeing life on a larger scale, looking beyond yourself, looking beyond just your feelings right now to
Mm-hmm.
something else, you can do that. Here's the thing: we've not been taught to do that.
Very true.
We've not been taught to do that, and nothing in life is asking us to. Everything in life is asking us just to be consumed with what's right in front of you right now, which is why every single person on the planet can find themselves doing this one time and an hour later look up and be like, it's been a whole 57 minutes.
Right.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we've not been taught to think if you keep scrolling right now, you're not going to do this other thing. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to find yourself wasting time that you need to do something. You're going to be late to your job. Like that's not how our minds are. Our minds are, oh, what can we do now? What can we do now? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
It's that instant gratification for sure.
Hmm.
Now, okay, so this question came up, and I think it's a great one because part of your tagline with Heart Combos is it's not a hard conversation, it's a heart conversation. So
Hmm.
you say that all the time.
Yes.
So someone asked, why are these conversations so hard to have? And they also said, for me, it's not having others' problems become my own, which is challenging, especially with family. So any thoughts about like why are these conversations so hard to have, and like have you ever had that experience of having other people's problems maybe become your own?
Sure. So let's answer the front part of the conversation. Why are these conversations hard to have? Well, a couple things. Their heart is relative. Okay.
True.
So I'm not quite sure what you mean when you say hard, so I don't want to assume that I know. I will say this: things typically are hard when we don't know how to navigate them, right? When we've never
Yeah.
done them before, when they're new, when we don't have, you get what I'm saying, experience using certain muscles or whatever. And so
Mm-hmm.
some of it is hard because I'm not in the habit of being honest. I've learned to protect myself by lying or being misleading or not really saying the thing but beating around the bush. Like I've learned to survive that way. I am just maybe an indirect communicator. It's just a value of
Mm-hmm.
mine, right? It's not right or wrong. It's just kind of how so I don't ever really get to the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so some of it could just be new. You're not used to calling things out. You're not used to, um, not drifting off into rabbit holes. You're
Very
not used
true.
to showing up authentically because you've been in spaces where you've been rejected, right? And
Absolutely.
then when
Yeah.
you made up in your mind that you weren't going to do that anymore, right? You're like, I'm not going to pretend. I'm going to like show up as my most authentic self. It hurt even more when
Yeah.
someone was like, and I don't want that, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, it's hard because it is hard. Like it is hard. It is difficult. It is uncomfortable sometimes. It is, again, creates unwanted feelings maybe or apprehension maybe to do these things because again, we have a story that we're telling ourselves about what it will mean to do it.
Absolutely.
So for me to show up as my most authentic self, if I'm already telling myself the story, no one likes me. No one's going to like me. And if I've been told my whole life, like if faith comes by hearing, if I've heard my whole life that you're too much, you're doing too much, you too loud, you too whatever, I believe that. And so it's just rooted in my little subconscious brain, right? And I don't even know it. And even on my best day when I'm trying to be, like to show up as me,
Mm-hmm.
something in me is like, do not do that.
Absolutely.
You get what I mean? And that's hard. All of that energy and motion in your body, all that emotion running through it, you just like, oh God.
Mm-hmm.
And then next thing you know, because you're fixated on the negative side of the fact, and that is they could like me or not like me, it's creating this apprehension and anxiety in you. And all that's making you want to do is create space, push away.
Mm-hmm.
So why is it so hard to have? Partly because you're not in the habit. Two, because it's actually hard on some level. And
Mm-hmm.
but some of that is really because of the story that we're telling ourselves around what it will mean to do these things.
Mm-hmm.
I will say if you have tasted and seen that showing up as your most authentic self is good, it becomes easier because now you have an experience under your belt that says, yeah, but it might be, but you've done this before and it wasn't. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to focus on that.
Yep.
Right. Which is why I create the spaces that I create to give people the opportunity to have some positive experiences like under their belt where they can say, yeah, everything about my family, everything about my relationships, everything about my community is saying that this don't work, but I've been in a space
Mm-hmm.
with a random bald headed chick from IG, you know what I'm saying, who is giving me permission to show up authentically. And I like how I felt in that space. I like myself when I'm with her and her community.
Yeah.
And that's honestly how I came to where I'm at. Like I didn't just wake up thinking this and believing this without my own junk and triggers, traps, and traumas. No, like I had an experience in 2007 where I saw something I had never seen before, and I left that place convinced that I wanted the rest of my life to reflect the things that I experienced in that place. I was like, I don't care what I got to do. I want that. in my life every day. I don't want this to be a moment. I don't want this to be a phase or a season. No, this is what I want.
Yeah.
So there's that. As far as the second half of the question in regard to holding other people's, making other people's
Yeah.
hard your hard, is that what it is?
Making others' problems become your own.
You
So, like
know,
with family.
Raffinée probably could give you some really great perspective on this because I feel like she'd be too busy for that kind of stuff. She's like, I'm too busy to be holding your stuff. I got my own stuff. I feel like that's
Yeah.
what she says. Like I have learned from her that boundaries can keep you from doing that.
Yeah.
Taking
For
on
sure.
another person's stuff, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
and making it your own. Because a
Mm-hmm.
boundary is, again, according to Henry Cloud, like that property line that distinguishes you and me. What's yours? What's mine? Like
Absolutely.
what you get what I mean. And so she has a lot of great, beautiful content on that. That really goes deeper. But I think that's one of the ways that you can do that is start learning about boundaries and start
Mm-hmm.
setting them and keeping them.
Yeah. I agree. That's what I was gonna say. Boundaries, which I could do another too busy about that, and I
You
will.
should.
I will make a note of that, because it's a layered thing that happens there. It's definitely a layered conversation,
Mhm.
especially when you're looking at family, because family could be a spouse, it could be children, it could be parents, it could be literally all the things, and so. Not to overgeneralize, right? Because
Correct.
that's what we're talking about.
Correct.
Not to overgeneralize and be like, oh, you got to have this boundary with everybody. Yet I do think there is value in identifying, okay, how do I have healthy boundaries, which is just me saying what I'm okay with or what I'm not okay with
Hmm.
in the varying relationships. So the kind of boundaries that you have with a spouse may look very different than the kind of boundaries you have with your supervisor at work,
Correct.
which may look very different than what you have with your child who is 2, which may look very different than you have with a child that is 16 or 27. And so I agree. I think boundaries is a big part of that. Now, we almost out of time. This has been so good. So that means you'll have to come back. Um, let's wrap up with this. So, if somebody is out there and they're struggling with connection, maybe they're struggling with overgeneralizing in their relationships. They maybe have ascribed to cancel culture at different points in life. Maybe they have thought, well, if there's tension in my relationship, then I should drop it and leave it. Any of those scenarios or all of them morphed into one, like what kind of encouragement would you give to people kind of in 2022, just right now where connection is concerned? Any like nugget you want to leave the people with or encouragement?
I would pose this question.
Okay.
Has any relationship dynamic that you've ever experienced ever been the same as another? Like the exact same in every way at all times? Has any friendship ever gone the same? Has any boss ever been the same? Have any of your
Mhm.
coworkers ever been the same? Like, I would dare to say that there's probably not one person on the planet who would say that, yes, I have had the exact same experience in every scenario with every person. Like, it's just, it doesn't happen. And we see that in our own lives, in our relationship dynamics. Again, all the varying degrees and the exceptions and the nuance, and
Yeah.
especially why? Because we're constantly changing with our
Mhm.
age, with our maturity, with our experience, with our tolerance levels, like all the things. So I would, if that has not, if that is true for you, right, that no relationship dynamic has ever been the same, then if you've been struggling, right, in one relationship with something, you can be encouraged that it doesn't mean that you'll struggle with it in every single relationship.
That's good.
One, it also means that you can like learn how to navigate other relationships based off experiences from past relationships, because I do believe that those things are meant to be learned from, right? I have a mentor named Myron Golden who says all the time, if it's not working for you, it's working on you. Some
Mm.
relationships don't work out for you in the way that you want, but they sure are working on you if you let them, right? To become a person that is better in the next relationship dynamic. I will say this, the encouragement is that connection is a skill. It's something that you can learn. It's something that you can develop. It's not like you're giving a way of like a dose of connection at the beginning of your life and that's it. Like, what I'm saying? It ain't gonna get no
Yeah.
better or worse than this. Like, no, like connection is a skill that you can develop. And I would encourage you, whenever you have the opportunity, to put yourself in spaces that help you to become the person who can connect better than you were able to connect yesterday. And that's personally, professionally, in your marriage, in your families, you know what I'm saying? Like in your business, right? If you become an incredible connector, if you learn to master connection, you will literally be unstoppable. Like the only thing that could probably stop you is God's will for your life. Like you get what I'm saying? Like you will be able to walk into any room, to demand any crowd, to build a relationship with any group of people at your will, if you understand how connection works. And so I would encourage you, just start figuring that out. Figure out how connection works, how relationships work, and you will have a skill in your pocket that a lot of people lack nowadays, and it will completely set you apart from the rest in every space that you go into.
That's good. Okay. Come on. Yes. Hashtag master connector. That's what somebody
Come
said
on,
in the
let's go.
chat.
Let's go.
So I ask every guest that I have that comes on Too Busy, because we're talking about the thing you're too busy for. Tell me, what is something that you previously were too busy for that you now realize, you know what? I have time or energy for this thing.
I used to be too busy for what people call shallow conversations, small talk.
Okay.
Yeah. I used to be too busy for small talk. People, they get a little knowledge under their belt and they be like, oh my God, I just hate small talk. I ain't got time for small talk. And what I have learned is that small talk is really just leveraging a conversation to gain information about people that you're genuinely interested in. Like if it doesn't carry the disdain if you're genuinely interested in the person that you're talking to. And so what I've learned is that I wasn't actually interested in anybody but myself. So I didn't.
Well,
So it's like
that's
I
the word
didn't
right
really.
there.
I didn't care. I'm like, I don't really care to know nothing about you for real. I don't really have time. So whatever we about to talk about is just gonna be, it's gonna go in one ear.
Come
So
on.
once I got to the place where I genuinely like was intrigued by people and understood every person has a story and their story matters. Like
Yeah.
every single person is an image bearer of God. Like whether we see the same, we agree on the same things, you believe what I believe, like none of that actually matters. But when I meet a person, no matter what who they are, I'm so intrigued. Like after doing my own work of discovering who I am, how I am, and why I am, I'm now very, very interested in understanding why people show up the way that they show up. I'm just curious. And that has completely eliminated the disdain that comes with small talk for me now.
Nice. I can dig it. I like the reframe because people not here for small talk oftentimes. So I could dig that. Okay, so tell the people, where can they find you? Do you have anything coming up? If people are like, "Ooh, I need to hear some more from this connection lady," what you got going on? Tell them.
Listen, so here's the thing. If you're just now being introduced to me, I would encourage you to take a deep dive into my social media spaces because there's a lot to just binge and to absorb, right? I always tell people to start there because from there, it's really just a deep dive. So
Yeah.
if you're like, oh, this is enough, I know I want to dive in. And I'm like, okay, great. You can join me inside of something I do every month. I try to do every month called the
Mhm.
Make Better Connections Challenge.
Okay.
I do have one coming up here on the 24th of October. It's a 5-day virtual experience where I teach people how to connect and communicate at high levels so they can get the most out of their relationship, so they can become better like connectors, right? The goal is for you to get better at connecting because once you do, it will change your life for the rest of your life. And so I do this thing called the Make Better Connections Challenge. You can join me in that space. You can grab your seat, secure your seat, get a ticket to that. And it's an hour a night and it will pretty much transform the way that you see connections, see relationships. Outside of my social media, which is again Heart Convos, like heart_convos at Instagram, but then Heart Convos on almost every other platform. We got some free stuff coming up. Raffinée and I, we're gonna stir up the conversation. I think next
Yes.
week, is it?
Next Tuesday, actually, it'll be. I'll do Too Busy, and then I'll be in there with you.
There it is. There it is. We have a workshop coming up called "Is She a Real Friend?" Because a lot of people want to know, like, what really like makes a person a real friend, and we're going to kind of break that down so that people who are constantly questioning, right? Oh, she didn't text me back. She's not a real friend. Oh, she didn't buy me a birthday gift. She's not a real friend. And then people who are on the other end of that who are like, oh my God, I can't do enough because people are always questioning, my loyalty if based on whether I'm doing something or not doing something. We're going to squash all of that in this conversation and give you some practical ways to be more confident about whether or not someone is a real one.
Yeah. I'm super excited. So, whether you're watching this on Facebook or if you're watching this on YouTube, I have dropped the link to the Make Better Connections challenge that KB was mentioning. So, feel free to click that link free 99. Yes, Renee, free 99 for the workshop that we're having next Tuesday. I'll make sure that I post about that in a separate post. So, and if you look on KB's page, you'll see it there as well.
Mhm.
Thank you, KB, so much for being here with me tonight. This is such a treat to have you on Too Busy. I can't believe it took this long, but here we are. Uh, and thank you all so much for tuning in tonight. If you're listening or if you're watching live, I so appreciate it. We're going to be back here next Tuesday for another edition of Too Busy Tuesday. So I hope that y'all will join us. All right. Peace.